Regarding idiotic Americans, and by this I don't mean all Americans are idiots. I mean, you're here, right? But if we're going to talk about the subject of the American idiot, I think it used to, you know, I used to have the standard like 101, pre-made reaction to American idiocy, which was, take a screenshot of it, put it on social media, and make fun of it to all of my friends and everything, and that kind of reaction. But as I've gotten older, I've started to realize and have that particular thought, which is, oh no, these people vote, and basically, I uh, I can't take pleasure any longer in the fact that there's a vast sea of ignorance out there in this country, or being smarter than most people. It doesn't feel good anymore. It feels like, in a lot of ways, all the knowledge that I have inside of me and everything does have a purpose that empowers me, but by the same breath, how good is it if it only makes change on, like, the individual level, is one of the questions that I find myself asking. It might make me more powerful, but does it do anything for my society to improve the general plight of the direction that things are heading in? And the answer is largely no. It doesn't do you or the rest of us any fucking good. And when I look out there at the amount of stupidity that is prevalent in our society, I feel alarmed at this point and stage of my life. Not It's totally different. I mean, it's not like, haha, look, these people are stupid. It's, oh god, what are we in for because these people are so stupid? It's the tenor of it is so incredibly different than what it used to be. You know, like, because your stupidity can cost me, you know? Your ignorance and what you don't know and what you might do because you don't know can end up having ramifications that end up impacting me, and I just I'm at that point where, I look out there at the great abyss of modern society, and I can't help but feel horrified, at the failure of the American education system and all of it, because all of it has political, and social ramifications that will end up, impacting all of us in the end. And there's no insulating yourself from it, entirely. You're going to be affected in some way, be it directly or indirectly, for all of it. You're going to pay a price for all of it. And just for instance, it was a very ignorant thing to do to vote for Trump because you were frustrated about the economy. Trump won though, and all of us are going to be stuck living with the mistake that you made because you thought, that voting for Trump would solve inflation. You know, you took your frustration out on the party that was in power, which I understand, because you thought that let's give the other guy a shot, was essentially the thought that went through your brain. And I heard it, I saw it, I just knew better, than you. I knew that what you were pushing for was not going to make the economy and situation better. I like, look, my point about all of this has been very simple. Like, all the steps were that would have been proper to, analyze the election were just skip through. It was, I'm big mad that, inflated prices have gone up, and so I'm going to push the big button for the opposition party. And there was no thought that there was no analyst analysis that went any deeper than any of that. In, like, what, over 50% of the fucking population that voted head. They didn't think it through. Trump wants to impose 60% tariffs on Chinese goods and 10% tariffs on everything else. Do you think that's going to be good for the little guy? Do you think that's going to like how is that going to make grocery prices any better? He wants to deport almost all the immigrants that are doing all the fucking work too. That's good. You think that's going to be have a good price, effect on the price of groceries? No, it's not. I mean, the sad truth in all this is just the stupidity of the American voter. You know, like I I I know that they're dumb. I mean, there's been a persistence, for instance, of people who believe stupid shit like that there was a connection between Saddam Hussein and 9/11, despite it being roundly debunked by the media, and it was persistent. It just didn't go away, despite the fact that there was no proven connection, and it was routinely debunked. To the point in which but people wanted so desperately to believe that Bush had a good reason to go in that you know they refused ultimately to accept a very obvious truth that I mean, it bellies imagination, and it is actually pretty simple to explain why Saddam Hussein and Bin Laden wouldn't work together. I mean, the Ba'ath Party was a secular Arab party. He was creating a secular Arab society. Under the rule of the Sunnis in, I believe, yeah, the Sunnis in Iraq, and I, I, I just the amount of stupid that you know goes in because Bin Laden had made statements about Saddam, and we gather and can see it. We can see the general like sentiment that he had towards Saddam, which was that he was an infidel. You know, according to Bin Laden when he was still around, you're a theocrat or bust, basically. If you're not a theocrat, you're a fucking infidel. Your society should be, entirely a theocracy, and that's the only kind of government that Bin Laden would ever support. Like so to him, Bin Laden, to him, Saddam Hussein was an infidel, and they just if they were forced by circumstances larger than themselves would work together, but under normal circumstances they would never ever 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 work together. And you know the US public doesn't want to accept the obvious truth on that one. It's not even complicated. I mean, this guy is a religious fanatic, and the other one isn't, quite as fanatical, and is more running a relatively, open and open-minded society about which religion you happen to hail from. Now, I'm not saying it's completely open-minded, but it is relatively to the kind of government that Bin Laden wanted to be, the world to submit to, basically. So, you know, those two, they would not work together. You know, they no connection whatsoever, and everybody wanted so desperately. I guess because it serves his interest, and because they're a bunch of sycophants for the Republican Party. I don't understand the American public anymore. Like, I don't trust the Republicans. I don't at all. Like, how do I know a Republican is lying to me? Is his mouth moving? If it is, he's probably lying. Is a Republican calling attention to a real problem that exists somewhere in society and it's a legitimate problem? Oh, cool. It's a legitimate problem, but if you vote for that asshole, he won't do anything about it. He has no compulsion about raising the issue in bad faith and then, basically using it to manipulate you, the voter, into voting for him. And then once in office, enact a bunch of policies that will either make the problem worse or completely ignore it. Which is exactly what Trump does. He calls attention to issues like the fact that the fucking inflation has been high. No shit, Sherlock, it has been high. But then he proposes a litany of policies that will make the problem worse. You don't get it. You trust them because you're stupid. You're so fucking dumb. Like, and that would be one thing. That would be one thing right there. And totally fine. Let people be stupid. They're stupid on that side. I don't have to. I don't have to worry about it. But I do have to worry about it, unfortunately, because I'm going to be dragged through the rigmarole with you because of the fact that you were too stupid to fucking see through the fucking lies that this man was fucking peddling. He was perfect. My compunction here, or however you want to say it, however it's said, is that he did exactly that. He pointed out that inflation was an issue, legitimate problem. He was not wrong. Now that he's won, he's going to enact a bunch of policies that will not only not help the problem, but make the problem much worse than it already was. I mean, you should not trust them. They never, ever make arguments in good faith. They only make them in bad faith. They point out issues that exist that the Democrats are overlooking, but they don't do it in good faith. They only ever 100% of the time do it in bad faith. And there is not a single exception. If a Republican is calling attention to a real world issue, they're doing it in bad faith. Absolutely 100% of the time. There's no exceptions. They're doing it to manipulate you into voting for them, not because they will actually solve the problem.